Hi, welcome back to Echoes and Edges, the Broken and Beautiful podcast. The Broken and Beautiful is a collective of healers on the hunt for beauty, meaning, and transformation. I'm Patria, your host for Echoes and Edges and the owner of The Broken and Beautiful, and I'm so glad you're here. Well, today we are back with Kate and Stephanie for part 2 of a 3-part series on spiritual harm. And if you have not listened to the last episode, part 1, please go back and listen to that episode before you dive into this episode. In that, Stephanie and Kate and I talk about, we start in the shallower waters of spiritual heartache and difficulty and pain, and then we move toward harm, toxicity, and abuse. And so today we're just going to continue following that thread, and we're actually going to do a deeper dive. So please be aware that this is probably not a conversation for kids to be hearing, at least not without your presence, so you can talk through some things. Anything really could come up in this conversation, including ways that women particularly get harmed in toxic religious systems, and that can include things around our bodies, all kinds of things around our bodies, including sex or coercive sex. So please be aware that that could come up today, but please don't miss it. This is a good conversation. To get a reminder or to learn a little bit about who Stephanie and Kate are, please again listen to part 1 because they share a little bit more about themselves. Not everything, but they do introduce themselves. We're not going to take time to do that today. We're just going to dive back in to our conversation about spiritual harm. And so welcome back, Kate and Stephanie.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah. So let's let the conversation shift. We ended last time talking about, this internal damage, basically, and the grief that comes from that is hard. It's also life-changing. When did you first sense that something wasn't just hurting you? Like you weren't just longing for something, there was something wrong. There was something dangerous going on. When did you first start noticing that or feeling that?
I kind of have two answers to this. I would say where there was awareness that something's really wrong, and I only directed it at myself. I knew I was not doing well anymore and something was wrong with my life. Wasn't till I was mid-30s and I just was having complete breakdowns all the time. And I couldn't control my response to life anymore. But things that I was having to override, that started from a very young age.
Mm-hmm. Before you shift to there, would you expand a little bit on what a breakdown means? Because I'm assuming you didn't have the luxury of being hospitalized. Maybe you did, but that's I don't sense that's what you're talking about here.
No, I just essentially I started crying all the time for 2 years straight. And I didn't understand why. I just cried because it wasn't just like, oh, I'm having a rough day. I hurt myself and my kids are sick or whatever, though those things were happening. I just was so sad and just had these crying meltdowns over what seemed like nothing. And I didn't understand why. And I could not control my emotions to fit the box that I was supposed to be in because women are emotional, which is something that is always said in a very negative way about women. One of the reasons why women's voices can't be trusted is because they're emotional. Mm-hmm. So it's understood you're going to be emotional, but there's also only so much emotion that you're allowed to have. And then, of course, if you're going to be that emotional, you're just stacking against yourself why you're so untrustworthy. So I couldn't keep my body under control anymore. And that was a problem.
Yeah. I bet. That's the understatement of the century.
Yes. And after 2 years, I just was like, oh my gosh, something is so very wrong. And my doctor offered to put me on antidepressants and things like that. But my stubbornness was, I want to figure out what this is. I don't want something, because other women I had seen, they were all on antidepressants. And I didn't see them actually thriving in life. They were just surviving their lives and staying in their boxes. And so I wanted to figure out what was wrong. So I wouldn't take the antidepressants.
Wow. So you basically had run out of dopamine and serotonin, and which is in the medical world, we call it, well, I called it in the pediatric medical world, the happy hormones. And so you'd run out of the happy hormones. So you're depleted of joy. You were depleted of resilience. You were depleted of, commitment to just push through, and you just couldn't do it anymore.
Absolutely. And bringing up the joy, that was something every day I was just praying, God, you said that the joy of the Lord is my strength. I mean, I would say this over and over, and I'm just like, where's the joy? What happened to the joy? Why can't I find the joy? What am I doing wrong that I don't get joy? Because that's supposed to give me strength to get through everything, and I can't find the joy.
Right. The joy of the Lord is my strength. So that's the math. The math wasn't working anymore. The math didn't add up.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. How about you, Kate? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'll go backwards in time, starting with the most recent. Very similar to Stephanie's story. I think for me, it was probably an entire year of daily weeping with no reason behind it. No, I will say in quotation marks, no reason.
That you could identify.
That I could identify. Every small frustration, every small annoyance would just lead to a flood. And I was at home with 4 little kids all day, every day. And it was multiple times every single day. And it was the same sort of experience. And I think my body could no longer hold the grief that it had been forced to for almost 4 decades at that point. And this, I will also piggyback into what internal alarms did I have to override? I would say every single one. From such an early age that I couldn't tell you even what they should have been. Every single question, confusion, hitch in my system, everything had to be disregarded, because to give any attention to something that felt off would have felt like death. It would have thrown suspicion into the whole system, and there was no room for any suspicion in any of the system.
I mean, you're both describing, it's not merely impossible, it's a coffin. You're put in a coffin and then told to thrive, like be joyful. And so at some point, and this is really common, sometime between 35 and 45 is when women can't hold the balls under the water anymore. Like psychologically, your brain can no longer consent to all of this. And it's just like something's got to give. And so then it's really tricky in those moments. And I hear you both describing this, because your only lens that you've been allowed to have is there's something wrong with me. the disillusionment starts with you recognize you don't have joy, like the promise isn't being fulfilled. What you were told would happen isn't happening. And your only solution is there's something wrong with me. That would be the only thing you have access to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because taking that responsibility was the only answer for decades.
And the answer to what was the question?
The answer to keeping things calm, to making things work.
Mm-hmm.
It's my fault. I have to fix it. I have to figure it out.
And I would add that it's the constant absorption of the other people around you shame.
Say more, Stephanie.
Well, they don't want to sit in their shame of how they're not lining up with things.
So this is going to sound a little sarcastic, and I do mean it a little bit sarcastically, but for what would they have to be ashamed?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, my body knows so well the absorbing of other people's shame and trying to make them feel better. Like just instinctively knowing, oh, they're feeling uncomfortable in some way. I need to help them. Mm-hmm. Which of course is a very good woman thing to do, to be a helper. Mm-hmm. But I think that's where there's confusion in that space of I don't even know what, like I don't have language for what they're feeling shame about. I just know it's my job. I'm sensing this is off. I need to bring ease and somehow absorb this emotion that I would now give the language of shame to.
While staying sweet and being joyful.
Yes.
And it's such an ethereal concept, this energetic transfer.
Yes.
And I'll call it energy because emotions are energy that are in your body and they can be shared. And this specific shame piece that Stephanie's bringing up is, I'll just be very blunt and say they are casting the shame of their treatment of those beneath them. These are almost always people in authority who cannot carry the shame of their treatment of others. And so they cast not only the shame, but they're also mistreating those under them. I'm saying also quotations, under them in authority.
They are the harmers. They are the ones doing harm. And there is something actually in their bodies that is not well with it. And so they are feeling, in a sense, shame because there is a shame that leads to life. And so as the submissive woman, as the one who has to keep the peace at all times, you have to absorb the hit of there's actually something wrong here. And the person doing the wrong will not, in these systems, again, we're talking systems, the system will not teach responsibility for harming because this is the right way, right? It's the right way.
Harm is the way that everyone stays in line.
That's it.
And authority is always right.
Yes.
So even if they're doing something wrong, we can't acknowledge that it's wrong. Nobody is allowed to acknowledge that what they did is wrong. So we must absorb their shame in doing something wrong because the authority can't be wrong. We can feel they're wrong in our bodies, but we cannot give actual language that they are wrong because for some reason that's going to cause the whole Christian foundation to crumble.
Yeah. That's the belief, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the belief. At least it's the implied belief.
Yes.
Rarely stated that overtly, but that is what
Correct.
we women are often holding in their bodies in these systems and will fight for. Will actually fight for because of that fear.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
And I want to name also that we are discussing the scapegoat role.
Thank you.
Yeah. And that women are given this role and they absorb it. They absorb the role. And I know you were talking about fighting, but what came to my mind was women fight to keep this role. They fight to continue to bear the shame. When we as women, I will say we as women, when we're stuck in this system, we will fight until we can't anymore.
That's right. Because if we actually quit abandoning ourselves and quit taking on the role of scapegoat, there's a lot at play, right? Because
Yes.
all the things, oftentimes including our children, are very wrapped up in this way of being. And so many times the fight that we see from other women and I myself, when I was still in the system, has to do with that. It's fear-based, right? It's like, I can't, there's no context. There's no slot for it. There's nowhere to put this need. And so you keep going until you can't. And that's what you just said too, Kate. And that's what you said too, Stephanie, about you just couldn't do it anymore. So both of you were talking about kind of what happened. That's interesting too. I'll just add that I had a very similar experience at about age 35 where I had just uncontrollable weeping and I could not I didn't know why either. And I would drop my kids off at school, cry for 2 hours. And I had this sort of imagery, because I'm a very visual, very dissociative. I'm an Enneagram 9, so I'm a great dissociator. But it was also a gift where I would put my head in the lap of Jesus and he would stroke my hair and he would help me get through this. But I didn't tell anybody that for years. I felt like I was absolutely stark raving mad. But that was the beginning of the end of that way of being for me too. So I just wanted to add that 2 cents worth.
And I want to name it's the beginning of the breaking.
It's the beginning of the breaking.
And I think I would add that I think all women in these places, they all come to this point. We all come to this crossroad. And what I named very clearly for myself is that I'm dying on the inside. And if I don't get help, the right help, then I'm going to live my life as a zombie, essentially. And I had enough fight in me to say, I want to figure out a way to stay alive. And I think that's what I saw so many women around me in the church. They had become zombies.
Yeah.
And I was just, I've got to find a different way. All of them have chosen this path, but I have to find a different way because I don't want that.
I'm just letting that land. Because how in the world? Like that to me, I just want to say too, that we are not here bashing God at all. That's evidence for God right there.
Yes.
Like you cannot explain at that crossroads with having no support, context, education, nothing in your life gave you, nothing in your view or what was given you gave you that spark. And I'm not using spark like in a woo-woo sense, but just that decision to not do that. I want to live that to
Well,
me.
I was having the conversation with God. Like I was in my front yard and he was who I was talking to.
Wow.
And I'm just saying, I don't want to die. I got to find another way. You've got to show me a way.
Wow.
Yeah, I came to a very similar place where I realized because I had the thought, I want to die, I knew something was terribly wrong.
Mm-hmm. So at this juncture, something, we were talking about where we first sense something wrong, but it's almost like what I hear us all saying is that place of first sensing is so far gone, right?
Yes.
That like by the time you realize that you're boiling in a boiling pot of water, you are so far down the road that we all found ourselves at a juncture of life or death. Like something has to give, or I'm not going to survive. I'm going to be a zombie. Like I'm going to keep living in this body, but I will have no joy and I have to just give it up, or something's got to change. So up to that point, let's see if we can circle back and just pick up a couple of pieces about how we got here. Like, let's talk about spiritual bypassing or what we did with our bodies up to this point. How did you, like? I can tell you all kinds of ways I spiritual bypassed. Like, God bless June Hunt. Like, I don't know if you guys, she's probably too old for you, but June Hunt was a little Southern Baptist lady that had a program on the late night radio called Hope for the Heart. And after I washed my kids,
Yes.
I'd go to the grocery store and I would listen to June Hunt like at midnight. I would go to the grocery store then because nobody was there and my husband was home because, he was in residency and busy. And I remember her teaching through Psalm 23 and going through each word and emphasizing each word as you go. And it was a gift. Like, I'm not saying spiritual bypassing isn't necessary. I'm not disparaging spiritual bypassing, but it also kept me surviving and not thriving. Right. And June Hunt was such a great help for that. She was so far ahead of her time. How did you spiritually bypass? What ways did you find to do that?
I think the teaching is so woven in that our bodies are evil. And so for me, the spiritual bypassing was literally ignoring any sensations from my body.
Yep.
And then secondly, any emotional sensations. That both of those two parts that make us human, it was spiritually explained as to why they should not be considered in any decisions, any daily living.
Yeah, and I do just want to re-emphasize here. We talked a little bit in part one about the difference between choices and decisions. These are neither, actually. It's like, again, I'm thinking back to my nursing days of third-degree burns where you just don't feel anything anymore. It's like you're not trying to dissociate from your body and emotions at that point. You just don't.
Right. And I think absorbing that teaching so fully and being immersed in it for so long. And I was definitely the good girl. Like I wanted to follow every rule down to the I will disown my body, even though I'm living in it.
Yeah, I mean, I had very similar response. I always remember the heart is deceitful. So, and I'm always been definitely a heart-centric person. So, just that constant fight of every way I show up in the world is evil because I was born evil.
Right.
And my heart is trying to deceive me and trick me. And so I have to kill that and then be told what the right thing is so that I can be the good girl and have the good life that is being promised and fulfillment and joy.
So essentially, spiritual bypassing can be done with just being within the system, right? It's what we're taught. It's what you were taught to do, was spiritually bypass, essentially.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely. Yes. And the few times that things were so confusing, overwhelming, hurtful, that I would speak up to somebody else. For instance, early in my marriage, I went to an older woman in the church and I cried to her and told her how things had just been so bad. And she told me that I need to love my husband. And so what I needed to do was go home and make his favorite food and find ways to show him love, because that's how you show up as a good woman in your marriage. Even when there's difficult things, you need to sacrifice yourself and love others, and your husband's number one on that list. So go home and make his favorite food. That's exactly what I was told to do.
And what did you do to survive that moment? Did you just go home and make his favorite food? Or like,
I was in a
happened?
lot of conflict. I think essentially now I would say I felt a lot of betrayal.
Yeah.
Because
That was betrayal.
I thought I was going to get some help and support. And instead, I'm supposed to just sacrifice more.
That's it right there. Okay, pause. From an empty well,
Yes.
find more water. Just find it. You're literally feeling like you have lost your mind.
Yeah.
You go for help. It's reinforced that you have the power to solve this. You're the problem, in other words.
Yep. More love, more service.
Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop needing.
Don't expect a drink in a desert. You go find the water for everyone else to drink. That's what came to mind.
Yeah. You solve the problem. No one else is expected to change.
Yeah.
And if you keep praying, one day you will wake up and your husband will be magically fixed, and you will have a beautiful marriage, and your children will be happy and healthy, and Christmas will look charming and delightful.
Yes. Yes. The dreams will all come true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep praying, keep serving, keep loving.
It's a long game. Just
Yeah.
keep playing the game.
Right.
You know what really ticks me off about this, besides the hurt that I see in both of your faces here? It's such a pained experience, but what really ticks me off about it is the twisting of Jesus's love that it does right there. Where, I'm thinking about the woman at the well who Jesus actually asked for water, and the way that I read that now is that he did ask her for what, like he did say, could I have what you can give, which was a glass of water in the middle of the day. But she had a well full of water to draw from. And that's why he was asking her for it. I want a drink of water from you because you have water. And that's such a desire. I want to give water. That's why I'm doing this podcast. I want to give, but I have to have a full well from which to draw water. And so that's what really ticks me off about this, is the twisting of the actual love that you both have within you, but that was never given to you to draw from. Like you couldn't draw from that.
We've had to resource ourselves. Nothing was being poured into us. We had to develop these resources, and as quickly as we could develop them, they were used and demanded. And it feels it's a no-win battle. There's no way to win this situation.
And there's no end.
No, it's until you go to heaven, this is your life. The futility of women in this system is, I think, where I was headed with that. Like, there's just I wouldn't even say it's a low level. There is just a hopelessness and a futility that is experienced by women who are in these high control systems, where they have no agency or autonomy to affect change. And they're told to continue to give and give and give until we reach this breaking point that we've discussed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's so the word, I'm so glad you said the word futility, because I think the fight, you tell me what you guys think about this, but I think the women that are still fighting for the system from within the system are fighting to avoid the futility, because there is no win to that. Like you said, there is no win, there is no end. And I've been so befuddled, baffled, taken back over and over again by women who really side with the harm of other women. And it's the only thing I can come up with, is not to say that there aren't, there's not evil or evil intent, but I think that's the fight. Is it's to stay alive. It's the version of living that they are giving themselves access to, or that they've chosen at that crossroads where the three of us said, this is not working. Either I am stark raving mad and I'm willing to risk the possibility of that to somehow reach out, right? Like, I've got to reach out somehow. Versus I will keep that inside and keep feeding off of whatever self-abandonment, self-destruction is happening inside to survive.
And I really want to say something about exiting the system, that women make up more than 50% of the systems, and women attend religious communities in higher numbers than men, and often are subjected to this. And I won't bring up cultural things right now, but there's a lot of cultural things happening that when women exit specific systems, it gets noticed. And I think there's something to be said for exiting a system that is causing harm.
Exodus.
Yes. Yes.
Just saying.
Right.
What were you going to say, Stephanie?
Well, I just wanted to bring in a compassionate element to the women who are
beautiful
in it, who even will defend it to the death, and
yes,
and support the men who are being abusive. I feel like they came to their crossroads, right? They made the choice they felt like they had to make. And it is super, super painful to live in that zombie state and watch other women going on to life. And if they feel like they cannot make that decision, whatever the reason is, it's I think it's going to naturally cause them to fight for what they have and put a lot of negative focus on the other, because they don't think they can have it. Like, it's this envy piece. I don't want to feel what life might feel like, because I don't think I can get to it.
Yeah, that's right. And sometimes for really good reasons,
Absolutely.
And so I'm really grateful that you brought a compassionate focus to make sure that we stay there, because it isn't, we did it right and everybody else is doing it wrong. It's more like, for whatever reasons, and each one is individual. So there's a million different reasons, but oftentimes it has to do with the financial piece that keeps people from taking the plunge, into something different, or the potential of something different. And that's not easy, right? ladies. That's not easy. I mean, that is a very, very real problem. And so to remember that this is not about good, bad, right, or wrong. It's more about the reality of the toxicity and the actual daily harm that it causes, and the systemic problem and the legacy problem. So it's perpetuating these harmful ways of being over and over and over again, while we say we want our legacies to change,
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, something's got to change then, if that's true. And I wondered, Kate, if you would just spell out, like, with no mystery, why does it matter that more than 50% of the church or 50% of the population of the world is women? More than? Why does that matter? What are you saying?
There is power and strength in numbers.
Yes.
And because women are so numerous, that is threatening, I think, to structures that have control as the focus. Control and it's just control. And because control is what leads to abuse and toxicity, when one person thinks that they have the right way for a whole group of other people, it takes away autonomy and agency. And these women are left struggling and hurt and harmed in these systems.
Well said. And I want to, so as we start the off ramp of closing this conversation today, I want to be really clear that these systems, these leaders who are always men in these circumstances, it's always men because they're the ones that can talk in authority in these systems, will not say, you have to believe it. Most of the time, they don't say you have to believe every word I say or you have to counter the system. Like, it's not usually that overt in sometimes, but especially nowadays, I think I call it the moving target. The target is always moving. So just as soon as we get something named, then the target changes, and it's not, well, that's not, most of the time that's true, except for like the Mark Driscolls of the world who continue to harp on, men that stay at home are idiots kind of thing. He just recently said that this week after, it's just shocking to me. And thank you, because he's showing what we're talking about really clearly. Most of the time, it's not that clear, though. And so if there are women who are at the crossroads right now, so right now, as we close, I want you to talk to the women who are at the crossroads, who maybe they're a little past it and they're still aware that there's a choice or a decision that they're needing to make, or maybe they're not quite there, or maybe they are right there. What's a first step to reclaiming something of themselves, to just changing their mind a little bit about their identity or that self-abandonment, or reclaiming something of agency within themselves? What would you, and take a minute, because I didn't spell this question out, but what would you invite them to?
So, if I could be so bold as to roll this question back just a little.
Yeah, please.
I just want to name for women at the crossroads, or not even yet at the crossroads. Maybe they're the ones that are stuck. They've already transitioned into a zombie sort of state. But not only is there psychological oppression and the spiritual and all, but there is the physical aspect. I mean, I just think we can't leave this conversation without touching on the fact that women are also responsible for men's sexuality. And for them to be pure men, they need to have a woman who is being very active to meet their needs. because this is where it is appropriate for them to have those needs met. And they are bombarded with inappropriate women's bodies everywhere. This is what we're told. And so women have it's such a deep violation when you don't even have your body as your own. Like, there is no acceptable no anywhere.
And you mentioned that this is bringing up your comment from the previous episode, Stephanie, that we did, where getting married took that one thing away that you had. Like, you had access to your no, at least to some degree. Like, you had a room to go to, right? And so now when you're married, my assumption is you don't get your own room anymore, right? And not only that, but you lose ownership. Your body is no longer your own, quite literally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And there is no private place. Like, you can't even take a shower.
No.
Like, you're at risk everywhere you go. Like, of having
violation.
Yes.
Violation.
Like, you don't get to have a no. You're not allowed to have a no in that.
Yeah, and before violation comes intrusion. And so, to those ladies who might be listening, or women who might be listening to this, who are like, I can't really identify violation, but can you identify a contraction in your body when you're just trying to get a shower without something sexual or some sexual innuendo or some comment? Like, just to say, pay attention, to your body. And I'm so glad that you circled back and rolled that question back, I think is how you said it. It's so important.
Yeah, because, just the fact that my boobs could be grabbed at any moment or my butt slapped while I'm trying to take care of other things like children or making dinner, just even that, to not even be able to have safety in my own body and doing these other things that were required of me. You just never knew. And then what does that mean? Oh, that probably means that you need to get the kids in bed at a certain time because other demands are coming.
Not spoken, but right. This is not.
Implied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is all
right.
Under,
it's that you get slapped on the butt, and it's not just that, which is of itself could be uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, because we can't say I'm feeling like I would like to physically and sexually connect with you tonight, because that would be so clear, and then you would have a yes or a no.
And then you would be able to answer. I think as you were saying, we were off ramping, I really want to name the loss that comes at this crossroads, the counting the cost of the loss. Because while the communities can be harmful, while the relationships can be damaging, they are still sometimes the only connection and acceptance and belonging that women have or feel that they are entitled to. You're often told to separate from the world, the culture at large. And so we have this sense of, if I see something that is bringing harm to me or others, and I say something or I step out, I will lose everything.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I don't diminish that at all. Mm-hmm. It's a cost that I'm sure all of us have had to count.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it isn't, and yes, exactly that. And it's also so terrifying because the setup, part of the setup is that safety is in the system and that there is no safe community. I remember leaving church the last time, which I've had several iterations of leaving whatever church situation I was in, at least a couple big ones in my life. And the last one I remember thinking, I don't know what I would do without a weekly iteration of church and community and bringing my gifts to that place, because that's what I was made for. That's what I believed, you know? And so I agree that counting the loss, and also that we are here with our hands extended. And part of what we're suggesting, that at least that what I'm suggesting, is that it's not all true what you've been told, that there's nothing outside the walls. That's what I believed, that I had to be in the walls to have safety. And I've actually found the opposite to be true. It's much safer outside the walls, much more grace-filled, much kinder, much gentler out here in many, many ways. Not in every way. It's still a hostile world that we live in. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the grace and the compassion and the creativity and the love that I found outside the walls is so different than what I was ever told, you know. So back to, you know, that question then, what would you offer them to just begin to reclaim something of their autonomy? Do they have to leave the whole system, for one thing? I think that's also a good question. Like, not everybody's going to do that. So I answered my own question. No, they don't.
Good job.
You did answer that one.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Because no, we don't believe
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't. I will speak for myself. I do not believe that every person needs to leave the systems in which they're a part.
Mm-hmm.
But there are paths back to yourself. There are ways to reclaim the parts of you that maybe you didn't even realize you've lost. And there are people who have gone before and know those paths by heart. And they're ready and willing to help.
Yeah, because nobody wants to be alone. Like that's the big driving force. That's why we stay in these communities, because we want to be accepted and not known. Yes, and not be alone.
Right. And for resources, like you brought up earlier, Kate.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely don't try to leave without others.
Yes.
There by your side. And go ahead, say.
I was going to say it's okay to be strategic. It's okay to have a little, like, you don't have to call it a secret, but it's okay to be thinking something. That's probably, if I get to answer my own question, the first step I would offer is, you know, let your rebellious thought be rebellious just in your head for a minute. It's not hurting anybody to have a rebellious thought. Just let it live and breathe for a minute and see where it takes you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, what if you are right? In whatever place you come in, like, can we just ask the question, what if you're right?
What if
you're seeing well?
I wonder if you're seeing well. I wonder if you're seeing something that needs to be seen. That feels like a really, really good way to end, is I wonder if, and maybe we just end too with, I wonder what you need, you dear woman who's listening, who, you know, maybe this is bringing you more of a sense of a bind, and you're feeling feelings that are very uncomfortable for you. Just right here in this moment, I wonder what you need. Maybe it's another breath. We all take a breath, you know, and maybe it's, you know, confidentially reaching out to Kate or Stephanie at their email just to ask some questions, you know, see what they would suggest. So how can people get in touch with you, Kate and Stephanie? What's your most favorite way? Obviously, they can go to thebrokenandbeautiful.com and find you on our website under the Remote Collective.
Yes.
Yes, coaches. And how else?
Yes. And then loverising.live or kate@loverising.live.
Okay.
And you can find me on Instagram at the space between the words. And also my email is stephanierosecoaching.gmail or at gmail.com.
Yes. Beautiful. So please do reach out, or if you're in transition already, or if you've already left, Kate and Stephanie are here. They're doing coaching. They're doing story work. They're able to help you really start weaving your story together in ways that make sense. And so please reach out to any of us, or at thebrokenandbeautiful.com. You can find other coaches as well if you find someone else that meets your specific needs that you're looking for. Well, Kate and Stephanie, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours. I just looked up and saw that we are 20 minutes over time, and I'm so sorry I was just completely immersed. I wasn't even paying attention to the clock. So thank you for your grace, and we'll see you next time, because I'm sure there will be a next time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.